different ways involved in shaping these documents and trying to actually implement them. The NGO Committee for the Elimination of Racism, Afrophobia, and Colorism that I chair has been at the UN for over 15 years. It's known as the Subcommittee for Elimination of Racism. But we've been in the UN as a coalition of non-government organizations, that's what NGO stands for, who have been calling attention to member states, every single state, that they've got to realize these, this moral and international mandate. Because without full ratification of the Durban Declaration, there can't really be a decade. It's sort of like putting someone at a buffet table and you're taking their teeth out. It's a little hard to munch on stuff, to eat it, to enjoy it. And so the work that we do at the UN, but the work that you do and working with us is about at least creating a pair of dentures, right? Giving substance and teeth and energy behind the work that is done. One of the biggest shortcomings of the decade is not just the decade, but even the DDPA, is that people either don't remember it or they don't know that it exists and they don't know what to do about it. So this convention, this meeting that we're having tonight is really important in terms of bringing professionals, grassroots organizations, and NGO organizations together so that we can move forward and do something about realizing these goals: recognition, justice, and development. Thank you.
This is an organizing conference, and the next speaker was one of the chief organizers for the Durban 400 that went to South Africa, and I was one of the delegates in that congregation, Roger Wareham.
Good evening. I mean, I know you all are professionals, but good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. Just make sure there's a pulse. I want to thank the task force for inviting me to participate. If I said that Malcolm X is responsible for you being here tonight, how many of you would agree? Okay. And I say that because one of the many lessons that Malcolm has taught us, and it's appropriate now, this is Black History Month, this is 2 days after the 52nd year of his assassination, was that the struggle, in particular of black people, needed to move beyond the constrictions of civil rights and take on the mantle of human rights. And in taking on the mantle of human rights, taking it outside the parameters of the United States and United States laws and the restrictions to the laws that always pop up when we get close to achieving, supposedly get close to achieving equality, was to take it to the United Nations. And I belong to an organization called the December 12th Movement, and we took up very seriously that legacy and that demand that Malcolm put on us to not only struggle domestically, nationally, in the streets and all the different arenas, but also to take the question of our situation, human rights situation of African people in the United States, but throughout the diaspora, to the United Nations. And so beginning in 1989, we, as Naji said, made yearly pilgrimages, and sometimes 3 or 4 times a year, to Geneva, Switzerland, which is not the most hospitable place in the world, to make presentations to the United Nations around a situation that existed in the United States. And if you, for some of you, can remember back to 1989, this was a pre-internet, pre-Google day, and in the international arena, the United States held sway as the foremost practitioner of human rights. And we were there, this small group of black folks, saying the emperor had no clothes on, that those were lies, and people did not have the information because where they got their information from. People were, in the international community, were under the impression that black folks were all right. They could see Michael Jordan, they could see Oprah Winfrey, they could see Bill Cosby before his fall, and say, well, they're doing fine. And we would always bring up the point that Langston Hughes supposedly made at one point back when the United Nations was first formed, and Ralph Bunche was appointed the United States representative to the United Nations, and people were saying, that's a wonderful achievement for black people, that things are great, and Langston Hughes supposedly said, I can't eat Ralph Bunche for lunch. And the point he was making is that the achievements of a few people do not reflect the conditions of the mass of people. So that when we went to the UN, we were raising up that question in around mid-1990s, after Nelson Mandela had been freed in 1990, the United States and the Western European countries, because those were the ones, the real colonialist and settler colonies, were the ones who were always opposed to dealing with the issue of racism. When Mandela was freed, the Western countries wanted to remove the issue of racism from the human rights agenda of the Commission on Human Rights. And we were there fighting against that and fought for there to be a world conference against racism. And so when that finally happened, our demand and what we pushed with many different organizations came together from, black folks from around the world, throughout the Americas, throughout Europe, throughout Asia, came together, and we all had our specific grievances in terms of how white supremacy affected us. And what we struggled with people around and were successful in doing was getting us all to agree on that whatever our particular agenda was, at the top of that agenda would be three issues. One was the declaration of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery as a crime against humanity. The second was for reparations, and the third was the recognition of the economic basis of racism. Because if we don't understand the economics underlying racism, we'll never be able to resolve it or deal with repairing the damage that it has done to people. So that's why I said Malcolm X is responsible, or partially responsible, for this gathering, because it was the legacy that he left and the implementation and struggle for that, because none of this happened, you would go and get a few votes. This was like a real struggle. That struggle occurs within the United Nations for that to occur. The United States, let me just ask you, and I think Dewadi already spoke to it, but when you hear the word reparations, what do you think of? Money? Yeah. But I think the general response people think of is money, because that's how it's always been equated. And I was one of the lawyers on a lawsuit that was filed back in 2002 challenging 18 major U.S. corporations, a demand for reparations based upon the fact that they wouldn't exist today had they not made their money off of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. But money is only an aspect of it. The reparations comes from the word repair. And so that's the issue, and I think that's why Onaje and Marva put this in the context of the World Conference, because the work that you do as professionals is to repair. It's to repair damage. It's to repair what society, different conditions have done to people. And so that we wanted to have that judgment informed by that it's really the long-term, long-range answer to that is the demand for reparations, and that can take many different forms. It's not simply money. It can be hospitals. It can be media. I mean, there's different. It can be free education all the way through, free quality education, not just warehousing people in schools. So the International Decade was again a result of the struggle, because what happened back in Durban in 2001 was we were able, and Onaje said that we took 400 people to Durban to lobby the countries to get this declaration passed in alliance with the African countries and the Caribbean countries. That was a fight. The United States walked out of the conference. The United States had stated even before the conference began that if reparations or compensation, however you wanted to call it, was on the agenda, that they were not going to participate. And of course they had the nerve to have a black woman chairing their delegation when they made that declaration. And so at the point when it became clear in the conference that this was still alive and kicking, the issue of reparations, the United States walked out. They just walked out. And they claimed they walked out because they were supporting Israel. But Israel was not even an issue at the World Conference in terms of the official conference. That was just a cover of fig leaf. And since that time, the United Nations and the Western countries have been struggling to just make, as she said, make this Durban Declaration disappear, like it never happened. They started the day after the conference ended. And then they got an unintended boost when 2 days after we got back from the conference, there were the attacks at the World Trade Center in 9/11. And so everything that had happened at that point in time around the World Conference got lost behind in the wake of that tragedy. So over these past few years that Diwali laid out, there have been some different things that occurred around an international decade, an international year for people of African descent, an international decade. These were all struggles. But what you will notice in the international year or the international decade, there is no mention of the word reparations. The theme of the international decade, recognition, justice, and development, that was a struggle and a compromise. Because once again, the Western countries said, if you put the word reparations in there, we are not going to support it. Not that they supported it anyway, but we are not going to support it. So recognition, justice, and development was a compromise. As professionals, when you're treating people, when you're repairing people, you have to identify the roots of what's causing the issues that they're dealing with, and clarify the development and how do you challenge it. I would just end by saying that the decade is not going to be carried out by the member states. They haven't put any money into it. The fact that you haven't heard about it is a reflection of that. And certainly, the United States didn't do it under Obama, and you can be sure as hell it's not going to do it under Trump. You know? So, for the decade to be alive, and for the decade to serve its purpose, which is to help repair the damage done to Africans throughout the diaspora, because no matter where they dropped us, and what language we speak today, or what accent we speak with, it's a reflection of the colonial experience, of the fact that their wealth is tied to our exploitation and our unpaid labor. As professionals, I would hope that your treatment would also be informed by people like Frantz Fanon, or people like Paulo Freire, who looked at the issue of supposed victims, identified the source, and how to get them past their victimhood to be able to develop as fully developed human beings. And I would end it with the theme that we had at the World Conference, and to this day is, they stole us, they sold us, they owe us reparations now. Thank you.
We have now our distinguished Afro-Latina Puerto Rican sister who, she could have been on both panels, really, because she has that level of experience, and she's been doing so much healing in the New York City area, and we're honored to have Esperanza Mattel with us. Welcome.
Just to start with Roger, and the reparations now. We are owed big time, big time. I'd like everybody to stand up and just shake out